Hello you guys, welcome to another video. This time around I'm going to be sharing my thoughts about Final Fantasy II Pixel Remaster. I recently just finished it and I wanted to talk about it. So I have a very kind of sporadic history with Final Fantasy as a franchise. I've not played every single one of them. In fact, I've not played most of them. I think I started my playthrough of the franchise with FF7 back when I was a kid, and I played it with friends at that time, and the only FF game I've played that is before FF7 was FF6. So FF1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were completely new to me, even though now I've played 1 and 2, and it was definitely interesting. It was super fun to discover the origin of some of the characters and some of the songs that I've heard in FF14. Now, FF14 is a very special game to me. I've played it for many years. I've played it since 1.0, and it's a very fan servicey game. There's a lot of references from monsters to bosses to dungeons to NPCs that you meet in the world to the music from previous Final Fantasy games, and discovering where those characters originated was very special to me. The very first time I walked into Matoya's cave in FF1 was extremely special because I've met Matoya for the first time personally in Evansward in FF14. So it was the same way with FF2. I think FF2 is the very first time you meet Sid, the airship pilot, which is present in every single FF game. He's always the role of a kind of an engineer or a scientist, usually tied with in some ways to airship, and it was the very first time I saw him in FF2, so that was super cool. I think it's also the first time you see a Dragoon. Dragoons, the aesthetic have always appealed to me. I used to want to play one in FF14 and then I never did it, and mostly because I prefer playing tanks, but I think Dragoon looks super cool. The spear, the kind of black armor with the spikes and everything, and hunting dragons, that always appealed to me. So meeting them for the very first time in this game was really nice. Future Shino here. So I looked it up, and apparently it was also the first game that chocobos were available. So I haven't seen them in a game myself. Apparently there's a chocobo forest and you can find a chocobo and you can ride around without encountering any enemy encounters. So I've never seen it in game myself. Apparently it exists. I must have been blind because I feels like I walked that entire length of the map multiple times, but here we are. I played the Pixel Remaster to completion, but it wasn't the first time I tried playing FF2. The very first time I played FF1, and I played it twice, was with the PSP version. So FF1, I played the PSP version to completion twice, and when I tried playing FF2, I tried playing the PSP version as well. I didn't want to play FF2 mostly because every time I watch any kind of videos, any kind of tier lists on FF games, FF2 is always at the very bottom. That scared me. I wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't want to play it. And when I tried playing the PSP version of FF2, there were parts of it that I saw that kind of were super jarring to me and didn't jive with me a whole lot. So in the first game, whenever you walk around, you fight monsters, it's exactly the same as in any other FF game before. You just kill monsters, and after a while you level up, and there's a little music, and all of your stats go up and you're happy. Now in the sequel, it's different. So whenever you fight anything, if you take any damage, there's a chance your HP are going to go up at the end of the battle. Maybe your defense going to go up. If you attack an enemy with a weapon, maybe your attack stat is going to go up. Maybe your level with that specific weapon is going to go up. If you cast a spell, maybe your MP is going to go up at the end of the battle. Maybe your magic stat is going to go up. Maybe your spell itself will level up at the end of the battle. You never know what's going to happen. So there's no typical level up. It's always you finish a battle and then some stats will level up on all of your characters, and it happens all the time. So it kind of loses the charm and the appeal of getting a level up. Part of the reason why I was scared also, it's not just because the game was typically ranked bottom, but it was also the whole grinding of the characters aspect. So in most JRPGs, you would just fight monsters over and over again. You would just grind the monsters and you would level up, and then you'd be strong enough to tackle whatever you want to tackle. In this one, and especially the PSP version, maybe in the versions before that, what I was told was, oh, you should probably fight yourself. Go into any battle at the beginning of the game and start attacking your own allies multiple times so that their defense stats go up and their HP stats go up, and that way it's a way for you to make yourself stronger so that you can then tackle the rest of the game easier. That kind of annoyed me. That was like something you had to do, otherwise the game was too hard or something. And that's why I wasn't looking forward to playing the game. I wasn't looking forward to kind of having to micromanage the stats of my characters and making sure that I hit them often enough during battles to level the skills and so on. One day decided I'm going to go through every single FF game, including the side game and the sequels, and that's what I'm doing right now with 1 and 2, and I'll do 3 and so on afterwards, and I'll replay 6, 7, and all of those games. The goal is to play every single FF game that released, maybe with the exception of like a few phone games, because I don't think I'm going to go through those, but the actual release games I really want to play. I'm not sure I'm going to finish them all. Maybe some of the offshoots I might not, but I do want to experience everything that FF has to offer. It's a series that's very special to me. And so in the spirit of going through all of them, especially in order, because I wanted to see the evolution of the gameplay, of the story, style, the OST kind of getting better, the gameplay mechanics getting more refined, I wanted to start with the first one and work my way up. And so unfortunately for me, 2 was right away, right? So you do 1 and then you're forced to do 2. So I mustered the courage, played 2 to completion, and I have to say, and this is going to sound weird, it was fun. I actually had a ton of fun playing FF2. I think this game is overhated. I don't know why it's overhated that much. It was actually a ton of fun. I had a blast playing it. It was different, for sure, from the other games, but it was by no means a bad game at all. In fact, in many respects, it's probably higher than FF1. So FF1, the story is very bare bones. You basically start with 4 completely blank slate. You choose their classes and then you name them, and the game gives you a few hints here or there as to where you got to go or what items you might need, but it doesn't really tell you where you're going to get those items, and you have to kind of figure it out for yourself by just wandering around in the first game. In this one, the story starts you off with 3 characters, which is Firion, Maria, and Guy, and they don't have classes. There's items you can equip and spells you can learn, but it's up to you to build the character the way you want to. And you can, if you want to spend hundreds of hours in this game, you can, and you can master every single spell and every single weapon on every single character if you really, really want to. The sky's the limit. You can literally do anything with your characters, but some of them are more tailored to certain situations based off of the way their stats are kind of built. So for example, Maria has the lowest health at the beginning of the game, and it took me a very long time to get her up there compared to the others, but she has more speed. The opposite of that is Guy. So Guy was my slowest character, and he had the most HP. So the characters are not really blank slate as such. You can kind of craft them in the way you want to. If you really want to make tank out of Maria, you can, but the main difference is they have names and there's a backstory to them now, and they actually have dialogue boxes and personalities, and that was really refreshing compared to the first game. Basically, the game starts you off in your 3, I think, teenagers. They call them youths, but I think teenagers, and you are running away from the Empire. The Empire is attacking the capital city of the kingdom you're in, and you're running away to a village, and in that village, that's where you meet the rebel group called the Wild Roses, led by the princess of that kingdom. You are recruited to help out, defeat the Empire, maybe recapture the capital city and kind of free your people. So right away, you have a story, you have a goal, and you know exactly what you got to do. However, it's not as precise as newer entries in the game. So the game won't tell you like exactly like go here with a big marker on the map as to where that is. It's more like go to that city, but then you have to figure out where that city is. So you have to wander around a little bit in the world and kind of figure out where you got to go by talking to NPCs. And new to this game is keywords, and that's a really cool addition. So basically you go into a dialogue with some important NPCs, and sometimes they'll have a word highlighted like in a different color, and then you press a button and your character will learn that word and then you can talk to the NPC again, and then you can ask him specifically about that topic, about that word, and then they will tell you more. And then you have a bank of subjects or topics you can talk to any NPC you meet in the world. So anytime you meet like a key character, you'll have the option to ask them about any of those words, and then you can talk to them about any topics you were interested in. It can get annoying a little bit though, because there were moments where I legitimately did not know where to go. I was walking around and I thought I had asked every single key NPC about every single topic, and none of them were telling me where to go, and I got lost. And while I got lost, I told myself, I'm not gonna grind the stats like what people were saying on the internet for the older versions. I'm not gonna do it because I'm not interested in doing that. So what I'm gonna do instead is I'm not gonna skip a single battle. I think in the Pixel Remaster, there's options in the settings, like you can just disable combat entirely. I didn't do any of that. I just walked around doing every single battle I encountered. I didn't skip a single one. And even when I got lost for 30 minutes or an hour running around in circles on a world map, I would just fight my way through me being lost. So as I said, the combat system, I was dreading it. I ended up fighting my way through just all encounters I could get my hands on without having to kind of cheese the system by fighting myself, and I did just fine. The combat system was perfectly fine. In fact, there were a point in the game where you can go back to the capital city, which is under the control of the Empire, and there are guards just walking around town. And if you talk to the guards, they'll be like, oh, you're a rebel, and they'll attack you. That's a really cool kind of thematically, because it makes you feel like, the capital is dangerous and walking the streets, especially because you're a rebel. Maybe you shouldn't be here. It's a passive way to tell the player, just don't be in that city right now, because story-wise, you're not supposed to be. And I went in there and I fought one of the guards, and I got my ass kicked, obviously, because it's so strong. After a while, I went back to the capital city and I was like, you know what? I just want to see how strong I got by getting lost. I went to the city and I talked to a guard and I fought him, and it was difficult and some of my characters died, but I managed to beat him. And that gave me a whole bunch of skill points and stuff. But more importantly, those guards dropped loot, and most monsters do, but those guards specifically dropped me weapons, specifically a bow, a very strong bow. I think it was a flame bow. And that bow, you only get it normally by the course of the game from, a shop or monsters and stuff. Normally you're supposed to get it much later, but I was able to acquire it immediately, which meant that I was able to just destroy the rest of the game without having to do any more fighting really or anything else. I was just able to I walked into any new location, wiped the floor with every single enemies, and went on my merry way every single time. I'm not saying I had the same bow equipped the entire game. Eventually I got upgrades, but it gave me the kind of boost to make the rest of the game a cakewalk. And unfortunately, it kind of removed a little bit of the danger of the world and a little bit of the excitement, because I was able to just destroy everything. It made the playthrough a lot faster though, I'm going to tell you that much, but it did mean that this game felt like it was the easiest Final Fantasy game I ever played. It was so easy. The only time I ever felt in real danger was the very last dungeon. I went into expecting the game to be extremely difficult and extremely annoying, ended up being extremely easy and a lot of fun. The music is just as good in this one. So I think my favorite track was the Rebel Army track. To me, that was the most iconic from this game. Nobuo Uematsu, a master, obviously, and didn't miss with this one either. Super good. In this game, I mentioned before, there's 3 characters, right? I named 3, Ephirion, Maria, and Guy, and you do have 4 characters in battle. The big difference with this game compared to the other games is you have a rotating 4th party member. So throughout the story, you have multiple and quite a lot of people that join you in the battle, and then they leave, and then they get replaced by somebody else, and then they leave, and so on until the very end. I think the very last companion you get them, I think, right before the last dungeon. So you have a lot of different people joining your party. It's fun at the beginning, because at the very beginning you get the first person that joins your party is called Minwa, and he's a white mage, and he's got a ton of spells already leveled up, and he's pretty strong. So it's really cool because it kind of makes the game easier at the beginning. You don't feel as overwhelmed. You have options to remove status effects and stuff. Unfortunately, almost, if not all of the other party members that join you afterwards, all are kind of garbage at the beginning. They kind of all join you the equivalent of you at the beginning of the game. They don't have any skills in anything. Their HP is garbage. There's something I gotta talk about first is the magic system. So in the first game, the magic system works like Dungeons and Dragons. You have spells level 1, and then you can cast, I don't know, like 10 spells level 1. And then you have spells that are level 2, and you can cast 8 of them. And then spells level 3, you can cast 6 of them, and so on, all the way to level 9. And then level 9, you can cast like 1 of them. And then you have to rest before you can use them again. In this game, it's more like your traditional MP. So casting a spell costs MP, and then the more you cast spells, maybe your stats are going to increase, maybe you're going to get more MP, maybe your spell is going to increase in levels. But all of your spells start level 1. You buy them from shops like in the first game, and then you have to cast them over and over and over again for them to level up. But it takes forever to level a spell. It's still feasible with your main cast because you have the cast of characters, the main 3 characters, the entire game. So you can just start casting spells and building them up that way, and that way you're good. Unfortunately, all of your friends that join you afterwards, like all the 4th party member that join, they all join you with nothing. You don't really have time to teach them a new spell and use the spell enough for it to level up to a point where it makes sense before the character leaves the party. So what ended up happening is anytime I had a new character, all I did with them is just give them a weapon and have them whack the enemy in the face with that weapon forever, and at least they were able to level up that specific weapon skill enough that they were strong enough to do solid damage before the character had to leave. But magic wise, I didn't even bother because it took way too long. Another thing that shocked me with this game is the amount of characters that die. I'm not saying who they are or when that happens because I don't want to spoil anybody, but it happens a ton. At some point I felt like I was playing Game of Thrones. Like the characters kept dying, and I mean like proper storyline death, and it shocked me. It happens so often that I got worried, and I'll explain why. So remember when I said that I felt the game was too easy? I felt that with the entire game except for when you get to the very final portion of the game. It's basically a gauntlet. You go through a dungeon, and then you get out of the dungeon into another dungeon, and at the end of that second dungeon there's the final boss, and then the game is over basically. When I did those 2 dungeons is the very first time in the game where I actually had a challenge. The enemies were doing status effects. I died a few times. At some point it felt like, okay, like this is like I have to think about like what I'm doing during the battle and strategize basically for the very first time in the game. So when I reached the final boss, I kind of freaked out because I was like, oh my god, like I died so many times, like 5 or 6 times during the 2 dungeons. The final boss probably gonna kick my butt. I'm probably gonna have a really hard time. I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna cast all the buffs that I have, so like Berserk, Haste, Shell, Protect, like all that good stuff, and then I'm gonna try to survive as long as I can while hitting it in the face. And so I started the battle against the final boss, and it was so easy, and I just wiped the floor with the boss. The damage he was doing was not even that hard to survive. Killed the final boss, and then I thought it's far too easy. There's definitely going to be a twist ending or something. So boss finishes, there's like a little bit of story left, like a kind of epilogue where like the characters are talking and the world is everything is fine now. And the entire time I'm on the edge of my seat because I'm expecting something to go horribly wrong. As in most JRPGs, I'm expecting a second phase to the boss fight or something crazy to happen. So the entire time I'm like, someone's gonna die, because everybody kept dying in the game. So I thought someone's gonna die for sure. And then, you know, there's gonna be boss phase 2, and that one's gonna be super hard and so on. None of that. Okay, just I killed the boss. There's a nice little kind of epilogue at the end. Everybody's happy, and just credits roll, and the game is over. So yeah, that was a nice surprise too. That was, I mean, nice and not, because I would have liked a little bit more challenge, but I mean, that was fine. I think it's one of the first games where you have access to a lot of transportation modes extremely early on in the game. You get the canoe almost right away, and then you can start navigating rivers and stuff. And then there are a few towns where you can just talk to an NPC to buy a trip by boat to a different location or a trip by airship to a different location. So you can travel the world very, very rapidly. Eventually you do get your own boat, and eventually you do get your own airship. There's something in the dungeons themselves that is a nice addition and something that's bad. In the dungeons, there's a map, so you can see where you are, and then you can blow up the map full screen, and then you can see the entirety of the level you're currently on. And the cool thing is you actually see where the chests are as well, so you know exactly there's a chest in that corner, there's nothing in that corner, so I don't have to bother going in that direction. There are some rooms that have chests in them, there are some rooms that have monsters in them, there are some rooms that have nothing in them at all. But in this game, there are so many rooms in dungeons that have absolutely nothing in them at all. You get into, like, let's say level 2 of a dungeon, like you go down the stairs and then you open up the map and you see, oh, there's 8 doors. So one of those doors for sure has the staircase to go down again. Maybe one door had a chest in it. The other 6 doors had empty rooms, and it just kind of felt like the devs didn't know what to do, and so they just plopped in a bunch of empty rooms to fill out the dungeon, so it felt like there were more in the dungeons than there actually was. But yeah, overall, really solid entry. I know this is the start of the SaGa franchise, basically. Like, it's the inspiration to what eventually became the SaGa franchise at Square Enix. I never played a single SaGa game, so I don't know how close it is to FF2 in terms of gameplay. Maybe you guys can tell me. I didn't think those games were for me, but maybe they are. Maybe I should pick up the new SaGa game that's going to be releasing later this year. If it's kind of in the same vein where you have to wander around and figure it out for yourself, but also like you kind of level up your characters how you want, I might actually enjoy it, because I did like this game a lot. It was a nice surprise. I was honestly not expecting to like it at all. And yeah, that's going to be my final thoughts on FF2 Pixel Remaster. If you have the chance to play it, don't get intimidated by what people say online. Don't get intimidated by the combat system. You'll be just fine. I was fine playing it. If you liked FF1, you're probably gonna love this one too. It's really, really not bad. I think it's overhated. I wish more people would play it. Thank you so guys for watching. If you are enjoying this specific video, give it a thumbs up. If you are enjoying the channel, give it a subscribe. Both helps me a ton. Share the videos with friends, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.